You don't need a mansion or a Hollywood name to leave behind a story that's more than just fame.
Me to need a will, just a family, or a cat plotting world domination. Welcome to Celebrity Estate Chaos, where we prove a lot of things. Like how estate chaos isn't just for millionaires with private islands, anyone with stuff, relatives, or that one weird collection you think nobody's fighting over. And chances are, they will.
So, you've got your crypto, right? Maybe it's tucked away in a cold wallet, secured with layers of passwords. Smart stuff.
Yeah.
But have you ever considered what happens to your digital stash if the lights go out for good? Or even, if you kind of go out of the picture. We're not just talking about market crashes and hacks today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, this deep dive is really all about future-proofing your crypto against some threats maybe you haven't thought as much about. Things like power grid failures.
Right.
EMPs.
Right. Electromagnetic pulses.
Those big energy bursts that can knock out electronics. And crucially, what happens to your digital assets when you're no longer here to manage them?
Yeah.
We've been looking at a whole range of stuff, crypto survival guides,
Yeah.
discussions about planning your digital legacy, even, what are the biggest worries crypto holders actually have?
And here's a stat that just, blew my mind. Over $140 billion in cryptocurrency is estimated to be lost forever as of May 2025. And not from bad trades, not from some super sophisticated cyber attack, but from everyday issues, forgotten access codes, failing to plan for the unexpected. It's a huge amount of digital wealth just gone.
It really highlights a fundamental difference with crypto, doesn't it? Unlike, say, traditional assets held in banks or institutions, its survival often really hinges on technology and, the individual person who holds the keys. Those secret codes that prove you own it.
Right. Think about it this way. Say there's a prolonged power outage. Suddenly, that cold wallet, the physical device you keep offline for security.
Yeah, the super secure one.
Holding maybe a big chunk of your wealth, it's suddenly about as useful as a fancy paperweight. But here's where it gets really interesting. What if that power outage wasn't just local?
Okay.
What if it was caused by an EMP, an electromagnetic pulse? We were looking at sources from hacked cars to cyber attacks, and they warn that these events can just fry electronic devices,
Right.
rendering your hardware wallets, even your digital backups, completely useless.
That's a critical point. I mean, our modern lives, and definitely crypto, are built on this digital infrastructure. But unlike, traditional banks with physical branches you can actually go to,
Yeah.
there's no central blockchain help desk you can call up if you lose access to your digital assets, is there?
Nope. No 1-800 Bitcoin recovery. So, okay, let's zoom in a bit from these huge catastrophes to more personal challenges. What happens if you just forget your private keys, those secret codes, or your seed phrase, which is basically your backup recovery code? That seems to be a massive reason behind that $140 billion loss figure. It's like finding a treasure chest but completely forgetting where you buried the map.
That's a perfect analogy, actually.
Yeah.
And then there's the uncomfortable but really essential topic of what happens to your crypto when you pass away without a plan in place.
Yeah, nobody likes thinking about it, but...
Right, but unlike a normal bank account that can usually be passed on through standard estate processes, your spouse or your kids, they won't automatically gain access to your digital assets. If they don't know the passwords or those critical recovery phrases, that wealth could just be locked away.
Yeah.
Forever.
It's just staggering. We saw somewhere that roughly 20%, 1/5 of all Bitcoin is considered permanently inaccessible.
Yeah.
And you hear these stories like that poor guy still searching a landfill site in the UK for a hard drive he accidentally threw out years ago. You can almost feel the frustration.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not just about individual mistakes either.
Yeah.
We've also seen, unfortunately, numerous examples of crypto exchanges just collapsing or disappearing overnight,
Right.
taking user funds with them. I mean, the names EmpDocs, Quadrig ACX, and more recently FTX, they serve as pretty stark reminders, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
Reminders of the risks of leaving your crypto in someone else's custody. It's that saying, not your keys, not your crypto.
Yeah.
It really, really hits home there.
Okay, so we've painted a bit of a worrying picture, maybe, some serious vulnerabilities for our digital wealth. But the good news is there are concrete steps, actual things you can do to protect yourself, both from these disaster scenarios and, The inevitable. Let's start with those EMPs. What are the practical measures?
Okay, yeah. When it comes to EMP protection, you kind of need to think about it like needing a full metal jacket for your digital life. You either need to completely block the electromagnetic signal or take the electronics out of the equation altogether.
How do you do that?
Well, Faraday bags, they're specifically designed to block these electromagnetic fields. They're a good option for storing things like hardware wallets and backup drives.
Okay.
Paper wallets, where you literally print out your private keys, are inherently less vulnerable to electronic pulses, obviously.
Right, just paper.
Exactly. And then for a more, robust approach, you can get EMP-shielded safes. They offer another layer of security for your physical backups.
So layers of defense, that seems to be the key theme. Now, what about safeguarding those really important things, the private keys, the seed phrases, and making sure someone else can actually get to them if they need to?
Yeah, secure backup is it's absolutely critical. You really can't rely on just a single copy stored right next to your main devices.
Makes sense.
Consider encrypted backups and store them in multiple geographically separate locations. You might also look into something called a legacy wallet. It's basically a strategy for pre-arranging access to your crypto for someone you trust, should something, happen to you.
Okay.
And honestly, even a physical binder with really clear step-by-step instructions stored securely somewhere safe can be surprisingly effective. Just
Right.
maybe try to avoid turning it into some kind of national treasure-style scavenger hunt for your loved ones.
Right. We want to make it secure, definitely, but not like some cryptic puzzle they have to solve. And this leads us naturally to that really important topic of digital inheritance planning. How do you actually ensure your crypto doesn't just become a ghost in the machine after you're gone?
Well, this really requires proactive documentation. You need a clear record of where your wallets are, which ones, what types, along with any necessary passwords and those vital recovery phrases.
Okay.
This information can then be securely shared with a trusted individual, a spouse, a child, a lawyer maybe, or ideally, you integrate it properly into your formal estate plan, with a specific digital asset clause in your will. We saw resources like Tina Jin's book, Passing On Your Crypto Wealth, mentioned as offering really valuable, quite in-depth guidance on how to navigate this whole process.
It might feel a bit weird, maybe, especially for younger crypto holders to think about estate planning already, but as our sources kept emphasizing, it's really not just for later in life anymore, is it?
Not at all.
Having these conversations with your family, even if they feel a bit awkward at first, it can prevent some major headaches and, potential loss of wealth down the line.
Precisely. And alongside designating someone specific to handle your digital estate, it's also really wise not to keep all your crypto eggs in one basket, so to speak.
Diversify.
Yeah, distribute your holdings across different wallets, and consider storing backups in various locations too. Encrypted cloud storage can be an option, but only if your designated heirs actually know how to access it securely.
Right.
And like we discussed with EMPs, keeping at least one EMP-protected backup completely off-site, or maybe in an easily accessible emergency go bag, that's just a smart move.
It all seems to come back to a core principle in crypto, doesn't it? Avoid single points of failure.
Absolutely.
Whether that's relying too much on one single exchange or storing all your critical access info in just one vulnerable spot, diversification, redundancy, they seem key. And as you've touched on, truly owning your private keys gives you that ultimate control, reduces reliance on third parties.
Couldn't agree more. And for those of you listening who want to maybe explore these topics in a bit more detail, it's definitely worth highlighting the work of Tina again.
Yeah.
Our sources consistently pointed to her 3 books. Let me see. Crypto 101 for Future Millionaires, Don't Let Your Digital Future Ghost You, and that one we mentioned, Passing On Your Crypto Wealth, as really excellent resources for getting a deeper understanding of crypto security and inheritance planning.
So the big picture here, the takeaway really, is that while crypto is revolutionary and exciting, it's not some kind of magic self-sustaining money.
No.
It actually demands proactive planning, not just for the market ups and downs we all watch, but for real-world disruptions and eventually the transfer of your assets.
Exactly. And it leads to a pretty critical question for you listening right now. If a significant power outage or, some other unexpected event struck tomorrow, would your crypto actually be accessible to your loved ones, maybe? Or would it just disappear into the digital void forever?
It's definitely a sobering thought. We really encourage you to check out the resources we've mentioned. Tina Jin's books are a great start. Also, from hacked cars to cyber attacks, WW3 and EMP prepping for real people, and emergency wealth. protecting your finances during a nuclear threat. There's a lot of good information out there if you look.
Yeah, there really is. And for maybe a more informal, perhaps more relatable take on these crucial topics, you might find the Crypto Crisis Survival podcast interesting. They're on Spotify and YouTube, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they often seem to blend the serious discussions with a bit of humor, which can actually make these sometimes complex, maybe slightly morbid issues feel a bit more approachable.
Good to know. So let's leave you with this final thought.
Yeah.
What's your biggest underlying fear when it comes to your crypto? Is it like losing your seed phrase? Is the thought of your digital assets just being lost if something happens to you? Or maybe it's that nightmare scenario of an EMP wiping everything clean? Whatever it is for you, maybe let that be the catalyst, the thing that gets you started planning and making sure your digital legacy is actually secure.
That's a wrap for today's chaos. If you learned something, laughed a little, or now feel slightly more prepared for life's curveballs, we've done our job. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel and follow us on social media. Catch us on Spotify, YouTube, and anywhere podcasts make you rethink your to-do list. Thanks for tuning in. And remember, if it's important and unexpected, we probably cover it. Stay safe, stay curious, and we'll see you next time.